Hey everyone. So I've been saying I was going to do a Kwanzaa stream for, I think, pretty much ever since I had the capability to stream. And every year I get super busy during the holiday season, which I think like a lot of us do, right? Like the holiday season, December 24th through January 1st is like a pretty busy time for a lot of us. So it's kind of understandable that I never get around to doing this stream. And I'm so sorry. It is 2020, and obviously that means every year that I said I would do something and never got around to it, obviously I'm going to get around to it this year. Alright, so, for those of you who do not know, Kwanzaa is a American-made, African-American-made holiday that takes a lot of concepts from African harvest festivals and sort of combines them into a singular celebration, non-secular, to help African Americans connect with their community, their heritage, and their selves. So a lot of Kwanzaa is about reflection, and how we organically work not only within our selves, but how we impact our community at large, as well as blackness as a whole. So the way that my family always would celebrate Kwanzaa is we would sit around and we would do sort of a round table where we would talk about that specific day's principle, and we would talk about how we try to observe that, what we think that principle means, how we tried to observe that principle in the year, and what we plan to do to continue to observe and build upon that principle in the following year. Because obviously, Kwanzaa starts at the 26th of December and it ends on January 1st. So it's, it leads into the new year. So what I plan on doing today is I'm going to walk through all of the principles of Kwanzaa, because I don't plan, I could do Kuumba during my You Can Advance stream tomorrow, but I will not be streaming on the 1st, which is Imani, which means faith, and Kuumba means creativity. So I think I am just gonna run the gamut of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, and if anybody would like to sort of join, you can join my Discord. I believe that's an evergreen link. I am in the what's the name of this channel? The call-in room. So you're allowed to call in. Be respectful. But yeah, let's get it going. So, the first principle of Kwanzaa is Umoja, which means unity. And it is to strive for and to maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. So, to me, what that means is that your actions and the energy that you put out should be about pulling people in and making the connection tighter, and doing your best not to repel people who may or may not be part of your tribe. In 2020, obviously, was a pretty hard year for me, as well as for a lot of people, especially people in my immediate circle and community. And it was really difficult, I think, to sort of maintain that connectivity this year. And I did my best by, one, trying to build a pretty healthy and friendly and welcoming Discord community. There's no pressure to be a part of my Discord. If you want to be a part of it, you can. You just need the link. I do things like questions of the day. I was doing, check-ins. We have channels for people to, vent into the void about things. And then I think with the work that I decided to do this year as a diversity and inclusion consultant, I think I really did a good job personally in trying to improve the spaces that I'm in order to create a healthier environment for people. Because I think one of the really important things about Umoja is it's not just about like your immediate community. I think it's also, the communities that you float in, right? So that means the trans community, right? Like the work I was doing with Trans Lifeline, both at like PAX East and Transitional Combat, and working with the professor from Tellurian Community College, whether it's the Magic community, which I have some thoughts about, but that's not really what this is about. Whether it's my family, I've done a lot to try to reconnect with my blood family this year. So yeah, I think for me specifically, Umoja has been very important to me this year because I usually view Umoja in the things that I do to bring my community in, right? Having them over for food, having them over for game nights, making sure that my local community feels connected with people that they may or may not have had a chance to interact with. And obviously in the year that was 2020, it was not really possible to do something like that. So it was really creative this year, trying to figure out how to bring that unity together. And in 2021, especially now that I am the gaming ambassador for Trans Lifeline in a more official capacity, right? Before it was sort of a title they gave me because I was representing them a lot in projects. Now I am a contractor for them. And so my goal for Unity in 2021 is to do what I can with the skills that I have to strengthen my trans community. I think that's going to be a huge focus of mine. And I'll be doing that with the various fundraising and charity projects that I'll be working on. And as far as like my own personal community, I'm still going to continue to strive to find ways to bring us together still, safely, digitally, in 2021. And that's going to be by improving sort of my Discord server and trying to find a healthy balance of being online, which I find to be pretty unhealthy. That's why I've taken somewhat of a back step from social media. But I still want to bring people in and make them feel connected. And so the best way to do that is, I think, to, embrace some parts of online media again. But yeah, that is Umoja, which again means unity. Oh, I guess I kind of skipped a part. So the greeting for Kwanzaa from one person who celebrates to another would be Habari Gani, which means what's the news? And your response would be whatever the day's principle is. So for today, which is the 5th day of Kwanzaa, the principle is Nia, which means purpose. So if I said Habari Gani, you would reply Nia. So that's just, a little educational tool. So the 2nd day of Kwanzaa, Habari Gani, Kukudrakalia, which means self-determination. And what that means is to define and name ourselves as well as to create and speak for ourselves. Kukudrakalia has always been a fairly important principle for me, both as a trans and a queer person and somebody of ambiguous racial heritage. One second. So for me, Kukudrakalia has been extremely important over the years. This year, I think it has been less about defining my transness and my personal identities and more my career identity. I've spoken about this at length on Twitter and on the stream a few times that at the start of the COVID pandemic, I lost a lot of my contracts and my income became a little funny. And so something that I had to do was I took it, or I shouldn't say I had to do, something that I did in sort of a self-preservation manner was I decided to career change and become a diversity inclusion consultant instead of working as an esports content creator, which there wasn't really a ton of work for me to do in that space anymore. And I think in doing that, I have found a lot of happiness and power and strength to thrive. And I think that in doing that, one of the most important things for me has been figuring out what my brand is going to be going forward, as well as what it means to me to be an effective diversity and inclusion consultant. One of the very first things that I thought was really important to myself was to not mince on my words and my morals. As I've said plenty of times to people and to potential clients, is that if you don't like the way I say things digitally, online, then there's probably not a whole lot of work we can do together, because I'm not going to be that different of a person in our private consult. So, sometimes people say, that I say things too aggressively online, or, that I come across as very brash. And my response to that is honestly tough. Because I've come to the conclusion personally that in the spaces that I work in, that it is more important that I am forward and direct in my language than it is for me to be nice in my language, if that makes any sense. And so I've kind of accepted the way that I want to go about things. And what's amazing for me is, while I thought that might cause some rifts for me in having contracts, I'm doing okay. I mean, I'm probably doing about the same level financially as I was as a content creator, but I'm obviously way happier and way more fulfilled in doing this work. And I'm surprised at how well my Stay Free brand is doing heading into 2021. And I think for me in 2021, with this new energy about my new career, I think it's really amazing. Well, I shouldn't say this. So what I mean to say is that I am excited for 2021 to also be able to connect more with other parts of myself that I want to work on and define. I see Kukujakalia also as a way to talk about things like health and physicality. I've gained a lot of weight during COVID. I want to shed some of that weight. I want to be healthier, hence all the cooking that I want to start doing. And so now that I have clients in place and have a game plan for how I'm going to work in 2021, I now have space to evolve as a person in 2021, which I'm really excited about. And so that is the second principle, Kukujakulia. The third principle, Habarigani, Ujima, which means collective work and responsibility to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together. So specifically, Ujima for me was about doing transitional combat. I didn't think of it this way at the time that I was building it, but I think a lot of what I've thought about for Ujima over the years played a huge part in the success of transitional combat, which is relying on the community that you have, reaching out to them, and figuring out a way to solve a problem. So for me, I knew that with the way Pride was going to be this year, that there's going to be potentially less opportunities for Trans Lifeline to receive money. And so as important as it is to support and uplift my trans brothers and sisters, I wanted to do something. And so I reached out to the community that I've worked with over the couple of years, commentators, tournament organizers, things of that nature. And together, as my immediate community, I was able to put on a pretty spectacular event, 2-day event. We raised $10,200 and somewhat for Trans Lifeline. And I think the thing about that, right, is that the success of transitional combat gave me something to build upon, to do other charity work, and make be visible to do things for other communities that I'm a part of. And so I think it's really important as a people, not necessarily like as a black people, as a trans people, but as people, human beings. I think it's really important to build meaningful connections with people and to rely on those connections when needed, and to not be afraid to reach out to people for assistance and for strength. And in 2021, so I'll be honest, in 2021, it's just more of the same, right? This is one of those sort of no-duh principles to me as far as Kwanzaa goes. I've always thought that Ujima is something that's always come naturally to me. This idea of building connections and strengthening your community and making your community and doing things to help your community, and to be empathetic to those in your community, right? All of these things I find to be very, very important. And I've always done my best to be mindful of the needs of the people around me and the people who I've brought into my tribe. So Ujima has never, so it's really hard for me to be like, oh, well, like, this is like my plan for Ujima in 2021, because it's just such an intrinsic thing that I do throughout the year to involve people into my community and do what I can to help them succeed and reach happiness and prosperity and power. So that's just kind of how I've always been. And so Ujima is just kind of this intrinsic sort of second nature that I've always had when it comes to observing the principles of Kwanzaa as well as living them. Because I think this is a good point to bring up, is that Kwanzaa isn't necessarily, the principles of Kwanzaa aren't like these things that you self-reflect on. You in theory are trying to embody them as the year goes on, right? You're not supposed to be like, well, oh, all right, Kujijakalia means self-determination, so this is reflexively what I did this year fits into this category. No, you should be actively trying to embody and observe and embody and observe these principles throughout the year. So that's Ujima. Day 4, Hibarigani, Ujama, which means cooperative economics, to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. So I made a tweet about this yesterday, that I've always struggled with Ujama in my adulthood, as somebody who has lived relatively impoverished. But what I've come to understand over the years as I observe Kwanzaa, and as I understand the difference between, so one of the things that I've come to realize over the years is that it's not how much you spend, it's the fact that you're doing things for your community. And in a similar sense to the way that I think of Ujima, right, of like actively doing things to empower and enrich my community and help them, it is similar, right, to the way that Ujama works, which is that it's not about how much money I spend, but the fact that I'm doing things to make my community thrive. And so one of the ways that I've done this is I've tried to support content creators that are friends of mine whenever I can, whether that's subscribing to their Twitch channels, whether that's using their Ko-fi links, whether that's retweeting their streams, whatever it is. I've done my best to try to make sure that I am enriching my friend community first, and then locally I have done my best to, I've done my best to support and empower the local shops that I care about. So that means I've been trying to buy magic cards mostly exclusively from my local stores. I have tried to support my local eateries by trying to order from them as opposed to like McDonald's or Burger King or something. I do my best to make sure that the businesses that I care about and who have supported me in some way, I am supporting them as well. that is extremely important to me as I think about Ujama in 2020 and in 2021. Now that I am working with Trans Lifeline in a more official capacity, I think that I will be better equipped to do even more to help, because I'll be in a more stable financial situation, so I can really look at what needs to be done in my communities to help them thrive. My plans in doing this is, one, I am going to be... Well, actually, I can't really talk... I was about to say some stuff, and then I realized that I don't have those plans formalized, so I probably shouldn't promote them, because I cannot guarantee that these projects are going to happen. So I will say that I have some projects in mind to enrich my community and be able to help more people. So yeah, that is Ujama, which is collective economics. So we're now up to day 6. Day 5, Hibarigani, Nia, which means purpose, to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. Talking about Ujama, some people, when they saw my tweet about how I felt about how my lack of wealth financially and my inability to really give money out, right? Because I'm not affluent. So some people have said, but what about like what you give in value, right? Like what about the stuff that you talk about? What about the work you do? How does that play into Ujama? And I said, well, that's really about Nia. That's really about purpose. Because it is the work that I do that allows me to create spaces in which people can thrive. And by improving the way that people look at black people in esports, the way that people look at queer people in esports, trans people, fat people, marginalized people, right? By doing this type of work, I'm creating a better environment for the people that I care about and for the people and for my communities to actively be able to thrive in 2020. And one of the things that has humbled me a lot this year, and made me happy cry a few times, is I've had a couple of people either tweet at me or DM me how much my visibility, the work that I'm doing, has allowed people to feel seen in gaming, in esports. And so sometimes when you do work, right, and you think about the work that you do and you try to observe these principles, you're never really sure if your game plan is working, right? You're just doing the best you can, and you just hope for the best. And obviously you want tangible results, but in the type of work that I do, there's not always tangible results, right? You work with a client, and you hope that what that client does in the future is good, and you hope that you do the best to make sure that the initial project that you do is great, but you don't have solid control over everything, right? And so one of the things that I am proud of as a visible trans person, as someone who's non-cis passing, is that I can be sort of this person that people can see succeed in esports and gaming as a trans person. And that's always been very, very important to me. And what is special to me, in a way that I didn't always know an answer to is hopefully that the work that I did mattered to people, and made people feel seen and valued and loved. And so to get that feedback this year, which I hadn't really had a chance to interact with since I was a Magic judge, has been really great. And, you know, again, to an extent, it's more of the same for 2021. I'm going to keep being a loud, obnoxious, black, trans lesbian in esports and gaming, and I'm going to keep trying to make it a better place. And I'm going to continue to do what I can to let people know that this is a space that they can inhabit, that they don't have to be something else to be able to succeed. You don't have to pretend to be straight, pretend to be, you know, non-ethnic, right? Pretend to be cis, right? To succeed. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that those barriers don't exist for you, and you can just be your holistic, authentic self, whatever that means, in this medium. And that's kind of my job as a diversity inclusion consultant. It's not just about, you know, making companies better. It's about making the general space itself better. And the only way that I can do that is by just being visible. And sometimes that sucks, right? But it's important to me that I do it as authentically as I can so that other people can thrive. Because I'm tired of, you know, esports and gaming looking the way it does, and I'm tired of people feeling like they can't be who they want to be. And so it is important to me that I keep doing the work that I do. You know, it's great that's, you know, while I was a content creator, that this allowed people to feel a way, to feel like they could be in this space. But that was kind of a byproduct of me existing, as opposed to me actively making that my passion. So yeah, that's Nia. That's day 5. I know I put up 2 fingers. 5. Hibarigani, day 6, Kuumba, which means creativity, to do always as much as we can in the way we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. Thanks, Henry. I'm glad that you feel that way. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. So, for me, as someone who used to be a content creator and who's someone who has always been a relatively creative person, you know, I used to be really into poetry and acting and playing multiple instruments and singing. Kuumba, when I was like in like middle school and high school and elementary school, that was like my shit. Kuumba was like way more important to me than Nia. Nia's kind of replaced the way I feel about Kuumba as an adult, because not that I don't think I'm creative anymore, but I think that the stuff that I focus on is different. My energy isn't so much into the creative aspect as it is into the work that I do. But Kuumba has been interesting for me this year because I have had to do so much to overcome inertia in 2020. You know, I stopped doing the neutral, which is a little sad, but I think my creativity has shined differently, and it actually kind of ties into sort of the passive stuff that I do for Nia, right? Which is, I think, really important for me to be a visible trans person in this space. And so what I've done for Kuumba this year has been more playful and expressive and emotive in my looks, to show people that you can be a lot of things. You can be a cis male who wears makeup. You can be a cis female and have short hair. You can do a lot of things with the way you look, and it matters. So I think it's super important for me this year to have been pretty playful in the way that I looked. I think a lot of my creative expression has come from the way I've done the makeup looks I've done, the outfits I've done, because I needed a break from content. And whereas content was this vehicle for my creativity, I had developed such an unhealthy relationship with content at this point that it was really, really good for me to have the opportunity to be creative differently. And in this case, it was in my looks. In 2021, I really want to get back into writing poetry. That was a thing that made me really happy, and I stopped doing it because I stopped believing in myself. I think a lot of creatives, in high school, you feel like you get this sort of confidence, and then, I had a pretty not great creative writing professor my sophomore year of college, and that just kind of destroyed a lot of my confidence as a writer, outside of the journalistic stuff that I was doing. And I have now realized that I don't need to write poetry to be good at it or to be meaningful or to, whatever. I should just do it because it makes me happy, and it makes me feel fulfilled. And I'm excited to try again, to relearn the happiness that comes with being creative and feeling good at a thing. Maybe, no, good's not even the right word. I think it's important to make art for the sake of art, and not worry about the impact it has. Hi, Kamianya. Welcome to the Kwanzaa stream. We're talking about Kwanzaa. But yeah, I think it's important to not worry about the art you do, right? I think it's important to make art because you want to. And honestly, one of the things that I've learned in 2020 is that you may think something you didn't have any meaning or any impact, and you'll always be proven wrong. And so it's important for me to remember that and realize that, and a lot of things, but most importantly, I think it's really important for me to remember that as a poet. I'm really excited, in all honesty, to get back in something that used to make me very, very happy. It was a really great outlet for me. I guess another thing, which is still creative, I think is also the fact that I plan on getting really involved in cooking. And once I learn a lot of foundational stuff, I'm really excited to sort of express myself through food, which is obviously a thing that I love. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for that as well in 2021, to both get back in touch with my poetry, a thing that I love very dearly, and also to cook, and express myself through that. And so that is day 6, Kuomba. And now for the last principle, Hibarigani, Imani, which means faith. To believe with all of our hearts in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle. So 2020 definitely both shook my faith, and not in the spiritual manner. I've always been pretty solid in the spiritual beliefs that I hold. But 2020 really was difficult for me, with sort of, I guess, the boiling point that I think a lot of us African Americans hit, in regards to things like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. For me, I think I hit my boiling point in sort of my rage and exasperation with Philando Castile. I think that was the one for me that was really difficult to experience. And it felt weird having to have these conversations about Black Lives Matters and have people that I thought were friends make it about respecting the police and Blue Lives Matter. And I lost a lot of friends who I've been friends with 14, 15, 18 years over this. And, it was the last time I really felt at odds or felt difficult about Amani was when I came out as trans. Because for me, Amani's never been a secular thing. It's been really about the faith you have in the people that you interact with and your community. And so when I, lost a lot of friends when I came out, I lost a lot of connections. And so that year was a very difficult year as somebody who observes, Amani's really important to me in a quiet way. Because you can't do the stuff that I do, right? You can't be a visible trans person. You can't be an exceptional black person, right? You can't do a lot of the stuff that I do without having faith that things can get better, right? And without having faith in people. Because if you don't have that, right, then none of the work that I try to do can function. And so it's a quiet principle for me, one that I have to believe in wholeheartedly. And so part of 2020 has really put me at odds with Amani. As you know, we had the 70 plus million people that voted for Trump a second term. The fact that people refused to stay home and observe COVID protocols. The fact that people don't understand that Black Lives Matter. The fact that people don't understand that trans lives matter. And it's been very difficult for me this year to have faith in the broader world and community this year. Wow, the music even hit the right mood for what I'm talking about. But I think it was projects like Transitional Combat, becoming a game changer for Play Versus, being out, being recognized as a game changer by Gaming Biz, as somebody who's working to make gaming better. I think a lot of that sort of reminded me and humbled me that there are people that care, and there are people that want a better world, in a way that I thought didn't matter anymore. Amani was difficult for me this year. I definitely am not as lost as I felt in like June, July. But I still struggle. If I'm being completely candid and open, it's hard to be completely trusting and it's pretty hard to be completely trusting and have faith. I think 2020 really shook this, like I said, this sort of passive buff that I always had, that people can be good. And so, faith was hard. I'm going to be doing a lot of reflection and meditation in 2021 to get back in touch with my faith. And again, my non-secular faith. And I'm going to, instead of trying to focus, I'm going to be aware of the things that disappoint me, but I'm going to try to be more hopeful and reverent of the things that matter. I think I'm going to be more focused on my immediate loves and community, and take a little bit of a backward step, I think, in worrying too much about how I can impact, broader things. And, I'm gonna not try to focus too much on the actions of others, as how they reflect, and my beliefs. Yeah. Amani's difficult sometimes. I think a lot of Kwanzaa is about positivity and how you can create a better community, and by creating a better community, you then sort of have like almost this pyramid scheme, right? Where like the better community, your members, they get, because they're nourished, and you're making them well, and you're helping them thrive, that they can then take that energy, right, and they can bring it to their communities, right, and it sort of like cascades out. And so that's how you make a better world, right, is you focus on your tribe, and your tribe expands into your community, and then your community expands into your state, or your district or whatever. And I think Amani is one of those principles that you sometimes have to face some harsh realities, and so Amani's always been a challenge. Recently, as I get older, I find myself struggling with the non-secular aspects of Amani. And that's Kwanzaa, right? I don't know if y'all learned anything. I hope you did. I feel bad that like Amani was kind of a sour note, but that's how I feel, right? Like, it's about how I reflexively think about these principles, and how I both live them and how I plan to continue to live them. And so while it's unfortunate, right, we were on like this real positivity high, like 1 through 6, right? We were like on this pretty high positivity kick, and then 7 was just like a nosedive. But that's it. I think one of the reasons why I really love Kwanzaa as a holiday, is that it's about reflection. I've had to do a lot in my life to try. I always try to be I try to be better than the person I was the day before, in whatever way that means. And so a challenge I've had, one of the things that has challenged me to be better and to be mindful, right, has been my observance of Kwanzaa and its principles. And that's why I love it so much, because it has, I think observing Kwanzaa year round has made me a better person, because I'm more mindful of the way, not only do the energy that I put out, but the way my energy is received, and the way my energy helps other people. That's all been really important to me. And so as I get older, and the more I understand about the world, and the more I understand about myself, and what I want out of the world, the more I realize how important Kwanzaa is, and how much it's like made me a better person. And I'm glad that I got to share that with y'all. And what you kind of can see in the back corner is a cat. Kindred has joined us at the end of the Kwanzaa stream. So I'm gonna stop the recording now.